All right, welcome back. Week one of the murder trial of Derek Chauvin wrapped up today. The former Minneapolis police officer charged in George Floyd's death. This is a very complicated case. There's a lot going on here, new information coming out every day. But as you guessed, the liberal media has one agenda.
The real question is, if he was so much on drugs, then why didn't he become immune to the pain? Why didn't he say, I don't care what you do?
This is the system on trial for a generation. There will be 500 million people watching when the verdict comes out.
We got a self-defense, and we intervene when you start killing us like that.
I'm sorry.
Okay, joining us now is Bruce LeVell, Executive Director of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump, and Newsmax insider Clarence McKee. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Oh, by the way, author of How Obama Failed Black America and How Trump is Helping It. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the time. Good to see you guys.
My pleasure.
All right, so Bruce, I'm going to start with you. It's pretty telling why the media is framing this story as a reflection on America, especially while leaving out some key developments that have happened in this case. You haven't heard a lot of these details in this case, but let's take you through a couple of them here. George Floyd may have taken Percocet during fatal arrest from the defense. Defense lawyer Eric Nelson said during opening arguments that Floyd's pals told police they had trouble waking him up after he took the drugs on May 25, 2020, the day that he died while in police custody. Bruce, there's a lot to this story, obviously. It's a terrible story, but there is this indication that he might have taken a lot of drugs that day, and maybe when the police came up to him, like a lot of people do, took all of them right there so he didn't get caught with anything in his pocket. We don't know.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me. Happy Friday. Let's just start off with that. How about this? You know? But listen, it is a travesty what happened to Floyd in terms of, the officer did press on him for way too long. And you saw the 40-year veteran lieutenant testify that, this is something that is uncalled for. We shouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. However, this gets back to what I've been saying all along since we started last year, the quote, autonomous zones and all the other defund the police is all the reasons to put really strong, comprehensive programs into police, funding, whether it be from psychological aspect of, psychiatrists on duty, whatever you might have to weaponize your law enforcement agencies since they're the front line on these streets, because there are people who you encounter who are on drugs and what have you. And so, it's an unfortunate tragedy. But I think at the end of the day, I don't see this as a race thing. I just see this probably as a police municipalitan that didn't have stronger safeguards on their use of force programs, which, when this transpired, if you remember, President Trump, along with Senator Tim Scott, came out with a very strong, aggressive police reform in terms that related to use of force. And you saw what happened. The left kicked it out and didn't want to talk about it. Yeah. So there were some proactive measures. And this is a city by city, county by county, state by state, federal law enforcement agencies that mandate their levels of use of force. So all of that has to be overhauled, respectively.
Yeah, no, I respect that. I watched the video. You see that. The guy's on the ground. He's clearly struggling. It's you don't know whether or not that leads to death, or does that just lead to a stiff neck if you're not on a lot of drugs. Obviously, the video, Clarence, is horrible to watch. We've seen it, but we just don't know at this time if the man had been sober, whether or not he would have died. And another thing that I find troubling about this case, when you look at the details of it, some of the stuff that the media is leaving out. When they took him, out of the store, when they have him right here, when he's walking around, he's already saying he can't breathe. And then they're trying to put him in the back of a squad car, take him to jail, and he's saying, I'm claustrophobic, he won't get in the squad car. He's already saying he can't breathe. So that, in my mind, changes some things about the narrative of the story, Clarence.
There's one big issue I've always had with this case, and that is, first of all, it's a tragic situation. I don't know why the judge kept that case in the city of Minneapolis. The video's been shown over and over and over again. It's very emotional. My gosh, it's a horrible thing to watch.
It's horrible.
But then if you keep showing it over and over and over again, as the defense is doing, you may numb the jury to some of this action. And by the way, a lot of people make it about race. You just saw Sharpton and the rest of the crowd and the media. They make it race no matter what happens when a black person unfortunately dies at the hands of a white cop. I think the jury should be sequestered. I just really worry that the emotion is taking everything over. Now you got a jury that's very balanced in terms of race and sex and even people related to cops or worked with policemen. I don't know how this is going to go. You can't predict anything. It's a matter of what was his intent. Did he cause a death, or did the drugs, or did both? And that's the issue. And you've got some youngsters on the case too, jury. You know, people under 25 and 30, they're not really big cop people. So we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a mess. And Clarence, I want to stay with you just for 1 second. The story transitions pretty well into your recent Newsmax article entitled, "There Are No Winners in the Race Card Game." Here's a small piece from that. The terms racism and racist are being so overused and abused that their real meaning and implications are being diluted. This causes real harm to efforts to identify and correct actual instances of racial bigotry. Elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, number one, you know what we're going through, and it starts right at the top with the President of the United States, Mr. Race Baiter and his assistant, Kamala Harris. They started race baiting a long time ago, and they're doing it over and over again. It's a race phobia. It's a shame what's going on. So what we have here, it's being diluted. The term is being diluted. So when you have real racism, my gosh, who's going to recognize it? But you're called a racist. I mean, if you get up on the wrong side of the bed, you're a racist. You know, if you support voter ID laws, you're a racist. My gosh, if you oppose DC statehood, you're a racist. You know, it's gone crazy, and it's like a little boy who cried wolf. You keep doing this and doing this, and when you really get a case of racism, no one's going to do anything, and it's really getting out of hand, like in Atlanta.
Right. It's all watered down. I couldn't agree more. Bruce, I want to move on to today's story just for a second. You've got Noah Green, a follower of Louis Farrakhan, attacks cops, kills one. There are reports that he recently blamed the U.S. government, the FBI, and the CIA for his problems on social media. Obviously, a troubled young man here. Looking at the way they handled the Capitol story, do you think the media brushes this story aside because it doesn't run with a narrative?
Of course. Listen, if this had been a white guy, he'd be all over the place. He'd be everywhere. You want Bruce? Okay, go ahead. But they're taming it down a bit.
Brother Clarence.
Bruce, Bruce, go ahead. Yeah.
Fired up for Friday night. Listen, you know, the unfortunate tragedy, and prayers for the officer that did it, the one that passed. But, you know, I've been around the Capitol many times, the 17th Street, the other side, and I watched those barriers. I watched the courageous police walk in front. You know, at some level, they have to walk around, unfortunately. But, you know, it'd be interesting to see where the full transparency on actually what happened, what was the motive, what's the real motive, that it's, you know, fairly put on all networks and not suppressed or used for their advantage, because, you know, this is a compromising of our great Capitol once again. And what is the behind it?
Yeah, no, you're right about that. It's the scary stuff, and the Farrakhan stuff is really scary too. What he preaches, anybody following him makes me absolutely nervous.
And they're going to downplay it. They're going to downplay it. Go back to January 6th. They're going to downplay this whole thing. It's a shame because he's black.
I agree. All right. Clarence, Bruce, gentlemen, thank you so much. Friday night.
Thank you.
Appreciate you staying up late for us. Good to see you guys. Have a good Easter. Have a good weekend.
All right, thanks.
All right, guys. All right.